Hi, it's Adam from Labour's Digital Army here. I'm very happy to be joined by Grant Sharkey, a brilliant musician. Grant.
Hi.
Hello. I've been following your music and stuff for a few years now.
Yes.
And very, very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell people a little bit about your 40 albums in 20 years project?
Okay, well, that's pretty much it. The idea was essentially a business model for doing music that is uncompromising in its content. So I realised I had to do it all myself. I couldn't rely on a record company or a management company to do it. So I ended up making this decision to release an album every 6 months for 20 years. That would take me till I was 55, and then I could work out whether I could play golf, which I've never learned to do, or whether I could just carry on and play some more music or whatever, you know, or just die. That was always an option. But the idea was to, a lot of my musical, comedic, philosophical heroes were uncompromising, and they were completely untainted by the industry, or whatever that's called. So I decided that's it. To do this, I have to work hard. So I write an album that comes out in May. I tour it until about sort of September-ish. Then I write another album that comes out in November. I tour that until about April, and then just it carries on over. It's about 5 years of it now. So
wow,
yeah, it's good fun. But in that time as well, we've seen the 2015 election, we've seen the referendum happen, we even saw the Scottish referendum happen as well, and we've just seen the latest general election as well. So I've been on stage all of this time, essentially chatting to audiences all over the country, and helping people sort of understand, but also understanding myself as well. It's a two-way street. It's a really good thing.
So one of the things that that I find quite incredible is the fact that I've known some really, really talented musicians over a number of years who have been really good. You know, they've either been good singers, they've been good guitarists, whatever it might be. But they've almost got that kind of that attitude of, I'm quite talented, I should just be able to like get a recording contract and get out there and be successful, and somebody should just give me a chunk of money.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that actually, I like, just from, you know, being in business myself, doing a few different things over the years, you can make money in various imaginative little ways. And actually, I think what I find really inspiring about what you do is that you kind of you produce, you know, you get out, you produce it with yourself, you do the, you know, you've got a bit of merchandising stuff you get going on.
Yeah.
So although, you know, you're not making, you know, you're not mega rich and kind of
definitely not,
and definitely not, sort of doing it on that basis, but you're getting to do what you love.
Yes.
All of the time.
I'm also doing what I need to do. That's the other thing. So if I still had my bookshop in Hythe, for instance, I'd still be talking about politics the way I talk about politics. But yeah, the DIY thing is very much, I keep telling people I've got the best minimum wage job in the world. That's basically it. I get to drive around the country, meet strangers, play for them, live in their communities. I get to share so much life with a lot of different people. That makes me extremely grateful, but also it makes me feel connected again. I can sit there on Facebook all day long and feel connected to 1 million people, or I can just go meet a couple of hundred, you know, a week or whatever, you know, sort of, and travel to places I've never been to before, and places, you know, not everywhere's great as well. That's the best thing. You know, I was in, I shouldn't say anywhere, but you know, but yeah. So the east of England, so the southeast of England, Kent and stuff like that. I disagree with them more than anyone politically, because I'm just not that far to the right. However, putting my music in front of people that disagree with me is actually the best place to actually find that forum, to understand a few people a bit more. I understand sometimes why people might vote for UKIP, and that's that was impossible 5 years ago.
Right.
Because I just assumed that people that voted UKIP were really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But some people have very genuine personal reasons to do it. They're wrong, but no, that's not the case. But that's part of the whole travelling thing. I think travelling makes your whole spectrum a lot broader in terms of that conversation. And with the DIY thing, you're absolutely right. I do get to fund it all myself, and I'm creatively free. I get to say things on stage that any management company would just go, oh, no, don't do that. I'll lose record sales, but I'm supported, which is a very nice thing. It's a really nice thing.
Cool. I think it's quite interesting what you're saying about agreeing with people who you kind of disagree, not agreeing with people, disagreeing with people, and still having a conversation. I think that's a really important point, because one of the things, obviously, in the last, literally, the Facebook thing that we set up has only been up for 3 weeks. Obviously, there are a lot of people who feel quite aggrieved at Labour not winning the election. And straight away we kind of get back into a lot of very negative, not from everybody, but there are certain, usually quite more vocal people who, start with very negative messages about people, almost dehumanising Conservatives and dehumanising anybody who's on the other side of the argument. And I personally believe that we have to get past that. If anything is ever going to get any better, we have to really start appreciating other people and try, like you said, try and understand where their opinions might come from.
Case in point, John Major was on the radio today talking about essentially how he feels there's quite a lot to learn. He still says, I'm a Conservative, I want a Conservative government, but he's picked apart a lot of their stuff. I've always found it strange that I agree with John Major more than I ever agreed with say, Gordon Brown, which is kind of strange. And just because he's on the other side of that fence doesn't mean I can't listen to him as an adult and treat him as an adult as well. It's not just like he's sat there saying, yes, I believe we should have less tax and smaller governments and things like that. I disagree with that fundamentally. But when he talks about something like Brexit, where he's just basically saying we should grow up, that makes sense. That's for me. I'll give him a clap, and I think it takes a lot more bravery to do that. It actually takes a moment of inner reflection to realise that this is a conversation. Democracy is a conversation. It has to be. Otherwise, it becomes something wrong, something destructive.
And I think this is one of the things that I've seen quite a bit as well is where specifically the younger voters that have come out quite a lot for the first time are feeling obviously quite disappointed at the result.
Do you think so?
I've seen quite a lot of it. I've also seen the opposite.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a number of people who are feeling a bit disappointed that things happen. Now, personally, after about 15 seconds of seeing the exit poll and actually working out whether it was good or not, because it had been I hadn't slept for about 2 weeks beforehand. It kind of it dawned on me, and it was like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think there is a kind of maybe a little bit of ignorance of even just the parliamentary democracy and how that works.
The process is not.
And like you say about how it's it's an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
It's not, we do come and we vote on that one day, but we have to.
Absolutely, and there's even, when it came to the exit poll, I saw it and then went on stage in Salisbury, so I literally got on stage absolutely buzzing. Like, yes! we had a half-minute silence for Paul Nuttall. Just to remember that he was here among us at one point. And then got on with the show, and it was a very buoyant show, because all I ever wanted from this election was a mess. Because if there was a leaning towards the right that was going to be 5 years of their control, I knew I wasn't going to see the socialism that I actually feel and believe. With the kids being disappointed, I haven't actually experienced the young people being disappointed. we say young people like they're aliens, it's just not right.
Yeah.
The new voters, you know, there's no, I haven't experienced that side of it, but I also think almost anyone can see that 6 weeks ago, you know, the polls being 20 points below, and this being a hung parliament, everyone can see this as a broadside, a massive broadside towards the Conservative side of the discussion. So I can't see how anyone's disappointed. If they are disappointed, then it is very much to do with a lack of understanding of the parliamentary process, which I don't even know if is taught in schools. You know, like
I don't think it is, unless you do history and you're actually doing just a little bit about British history. I don't think it's covered at all.
Yeah, I suppose that's about right. I personally wasn't taught about it. I've had to learn. Again, it's just saying, it's sort of like mortgages. You know, no one ever explains to you what the hell a mortgage is at school, or shares, or the stock markets, or whatever. You know, there's no point where the education system ever just gives you just a sheet and just says that's the thing, and you go, oh right, okay. And same with parliamentary processes. It's archaic, but it's also one of the oldest democracies in the world. It's one of the most robust democracies in the world. Again, the internet can also make people paranoid a little bit, so they might think it's a fix that, that they didn't know what they got, and that also makes me moved to say, you know, this is not fixed. It's not one of those. It's not one of those. We're not a banana republic yet. You know, we're not a banana republic. We do actually have a very fair and decent system. What we also have is a lot of people who have quite a lot of money, and they're older.
Well, definitely. And then also talking about people who have a lot of money. I know that from various songs of yours, one of your particular favourite human beings is Rupert Murdoch. Do you want to just talk a little bit about it? It's not that it wasn't the last album, was it? It was the one before?
It was the one before. So after Brexit, I went and lived in the woods for 3 days, running up and down hills and swimming in the sea and eating whatever I could kill, which was sausages. And it was, and I came out of the woods realising that no matter how we all voted in that campaign, no matter how we voted in the referendum, that whole thing was rubbish. It was so polarising, it was so divisive, and it was
kind of dirty, wasn't it? Like the campaign was just kind of hideous.
It was awful, and you know, we're talking on the eve of the anniversary of Joe Cox's death. You know, that came to a point where I was like, hold on, this is out of hand. And then I think it was like the day before was when Bob Geldof and Nigel Farage had a standoff in the Thames. Do you remember that? You know, the whole thing was just ridiculous. It was like everyone was just climbing into a clown car every morning and rolling off to some strange extreme, you know, the polar opposites of each other. And I think a lot of it was stirred up by, firstly, the Leave campaign's Big Red Bus, but also secondly by the right-wing press. So the Daily Mail, people who read the Daily Mail are essentially not worth anything other than the Daily Mail anyway. That's the way it is. If that's the opinion they need, they go and buy it. With the Sun though, it gets left in a lot of different places, and so Murdoch's always been a little bit of a thing for me. With Rupert Murdoch, for 40 years, he's essentially had this hand in our country, and in our government. Sometimes his influence hasn't been as great as other times. Again, John Major and Gordon Brown were actually the sort of two he couldn't get on with, so he flipped and got rid of them.
And I think he's been sort of quoted or put as saying that he has astounding access had astounding access with his money.
With the referendum, he said, when I walk into Downing Street, they just let me in. When I walk into Brussels, they don't know who I am. So, again, another reason to vote in. But the whole campaign was very much stirred up. And it was, you know, if you just look at he doesn't tweet anymore, but if you just go look at his historic tweets, you'll see stuff about the Muslim threat and stuff like that. He's just this awful, awful guy he's disconnected from the world himself. He's in his own little bubble, but unfortunately has 12 billion quid in the bank and possibly Sky News soon. So I chose to take him on by publishing his address in some songs.
I can hear it.
Yeah. It's a lovely address. It's in 6/8. It's in 3/4 if you need it to be. It just flows in that time signature. I wrote some sort of awful songs about him. I wrote one called Uncle Twinkle Fingers, which I'm not proud of. But which is essentially it's about how he's abused our country for 40 years. So you have to use the terminology of abuse and stuff like that. But to turn it into something interesting, it also shouts out who's your best friend. Uncle Twinkle Fingers quite a lot as well. Audiences love it. Except for Birmingham last year. Birmingham didn't like it. They turned on me. That was fine. But yeah, and every song on that album from 840, I think it is, there's his address somewhere on there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the power of music.
The other thing, sort of lastly, I think I just wanted to talk about was kind of, I think the other thing, and to be honest, maybe something that made me feel like I could get in front of the camera or get in front of the phone and start talking was the fact that was that kind of dissenting that you do in the music that you do, in terms of just it's not that you don't care what anybody thinks about it, but it's that you feel very passionate about something, you want to get that message across to other people, or at least you want to start conversations with people about things.
We live in a world of perceptions, essentially. None of us actually live in the real world anymore. There's the point where our Facebook feeds suddenly become the most informative part of our day, when really, there's a world out there giving you seasons and food and everything like that. It's an amazing thing to be disconnected from. Perceptions are a very odd thing, and the only way to really break them or to try and understand more and more is to just get as many viewpoints as possible. When it comes to where were you going, sorry, with that? There was a point, but right at the beginning of that question.
I think it was more about the dissenting.
So the dissent, okay, yeah. Okay, so there's a brilliant book by Lewis Hyde called Trickster Makes This World, which is all about how it takes, in folklores, it takes a character who's a trickster to either bring a village together or tear it apart, whichever way. No one really wins or loses, but everything changes. That's the idea. So when I go on stage, I obviously have my own feelings. I do believe we are living at a very important time of our species, and how we choose to go forward from the next sort of 10, 15 years is actually going to define where the whole species is going to go for the next millennia or so. So I actually believe we should be talking more about everything and trying to understand a lot more things. So I go on stage pretty much trying to work out every night what that is. I obviously know roughly some things. I write songs about the population crisis and the fact that we're all going to die, which is actually a weird taboo that you put in front of an audience. But also I go on stage literally trying to be the trickster. So if anyone has a viewpoint, I will try and change it around, and I'll even if I agree with it. So I don't necessarily agree with everyone in my audience, which is part of that as well. So being a trickster sort of type character is quite important to where the dissent comes from. But it's also to realise that we all have the same bodily functions and the same bodily needs. When you realise that, no one's sacred, nothing is sacred. So dissent doesn't really happen as such. It's just about taking down any hierarchy to the world. So in the same way that I don't beat you up for a glass of water, just because you beat Theresa May sat there doesn't mean I should say, give me a glass of water. I would be as polite to her as I would be to you. That's part of being a human, that's part of being a respectful human being. we can disagree on many different levels, but that's it. But also when it comes to me being able to say something to her, she should be able to say the same thing back to me as well. So that's also part of the dissent as well. Dissent is just it's a lack of hierarchy, really.
Yeah.
And it takes it's a very quick click in your head, and then you realise it's there.
I think that's maybe with the, I know we said we maybe shouldn't refer to them as younger people, but the newer voters, or the people, let's say the people that are realising that they can become part of society, like actively take part in society, rather than just let it kind of go past them. In that, it is breaking down that hierarchy, because I think it is kind of built into the system that we should just be happy with the little bit that we've got and not kind of fight.
Do you think it is? I've never really experienced that, so I've never considered myself to be put in my place. I am in my place. That my place is everywhere. So, but I see the whole vote that turned out for the Labour Party this time around. Firstly, I think there are always going to be a certain amount of people they will always vote against the government. That's the first thing you have to take into account. The second side of it is, after the referendum, there were a lot of 17-year-olds who became 18 in that last year. So we've seen that influx of people, and as we all know, the sort of the 17s and under were angry about leaving the EU, and that anger is coming out now in the force of a sort of left-wing vote. I also think the internet, despite all of its flaws, has also asked a question of people of how good a citizen do you want to be. Now, there's so many memes that do the rounds of people pretend to be homeless, and they'll get some money from someone, and those things go viral, and then they hand it back and say, "No, you've done a lovely thing," and we expose a lot more of that
social experiments, isn't it?
Yeah, the human kindness as well, though. We see a lot more of it because we've now become voyeurs of it as well. It used to be, a tale, I can't believe it, someone bought my dinner for me the other day. But now we see a lot more of this stuff, and I think there's a lot of people who are younger, who are new to the whole voting thing, who want to be better citizens. We actually want to be fairer, and want to be nicer. And it's not to do with being poor or being rich, it's actually to do with being in a fairer space where you can be poor and you can be rich as much as you like, basically, without falling off or without dying or without having services. And again, those people are also asking for a better government who aren't just looking at rich, poor, growth and recession, etc. They're looking at a system that is capable of dealing with us all. So there are some people who don't want to go to do a job. There are some people who just want to be mums, and for some reason we've ended up with a system that gives mothers 6 months before they have to get back in the workforce. It's like, hang on, what? There's another 17 and a half years to go. So at what point can we let mothers become valued, or can we let, there are some people who don't want to work, but why should we? Some people consider that to be like a drag on society, when the truth is those people might end up becoming artists, or there's a lot of sitting around and thinking in the world. It's just one of those things. To go and do a job you hate shouldn't be the reason to get up in the morning. That's basically it. But we also have a whole conversation going on about stuff like immigration. We don't talk about automation in those factors. We don't talk about the students. We don't talk about the migrant workforce. We don't talk about all this stuff. And all we want now is a government that can help us discuss all these things. And I think that's where this new motivation to vote for the Labour Party, or for hope, I suppose, is the word that's being thrown about quite a lot. That's why I think there's all this motivation, is we can now discuss these things without it being a discussion about the national identity. It's very much about our self-identity. within it. So that was a very confused answer to basically say the kids are all right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's probably about it. Okay. I'm going to put a link to a few videos and stuff underneath this. So I'm hoping that people will see that and jump on board.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be really good fun. Cool. Whatever works. If any of that's usable, go for it. But yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, that's really nice. Good stopping out.